Okay, thank you. All right, let me organize here. Okay, hi everybody. I'm really excited to be here, and I have to be honest with you. I'm working from home for years now, like many of you, I guess. So be here in front of people, it's like hitting me a little bit differently than usual. But I'm really happy. Thank you for being here, and thank you to the Creative Morning teams for contacting me. I'm so glad to have the space to talk about my work and what I think is important. And but let's start. So my name is Veronica. I'm a designer and activist. So this morning I will talk about how I combine activism in my work and the influences that led me to communicate on a hopeful kind of activism. But first I will introduce a little bit myself, and I'm an expert in the Netherlands, like I guess many of you in this room. So you know that one of the first questions that you're asked when you meet someone is, where are you from? And this is pretty much what's happening in my head every time I hear this question. I never know where to start. So luckily, I have this very funny meme from Russians in London. So I will start with A. I have a double nationality. I'm Italian and French. I was born in Milan, in Italy. I live in Rotterdam. I lived in Amsterdam before, and before that in Paris and in Milan, of course. And for the 10 minutes family history, we're going to make it a little bit shorter. But my mom is Italian and owner of an antique shop in Milan. So this is me and my sister in front of her shop in what seems to be 1800, but it was probably late 90s, early 2000. But I chose this picture to show how our parents can have an influence on our lives. So having a mom that is an antiquaire, it definitely reflected on our outside look, but also on the inside, of course, because seeing my mom being so passionate about her work, about art, and opening a shop from scratch in the center of Milan really gave me this need of becoming an entrepreneur in the future and the freedom of being my own boss, and of course the passion for art. And this is my dad. My dad is French, and he's the one that really took care that me and my sister understood the concept of being free, freedom, and respect other people's idea. So definitely the activist side is coming from him. And this is a picture of my high school. I did a public high school in Milan. So there was this very lefty side, but also like a very open to freedom and to protest. And I chose this picture because I think every 2-3 years, there's a new education law regarding education in Italy. And the students weren't happy with this law. So we decided to occupy the school. So we put a banner. Boccioni is the name of the school. Occupato means occupied. And we were like, okay, we're just going to lock ourselves inside the school as an act of protest. So we put big locks on the front doors, and only students were allowed to enter the school. What I really learned from this experience is that if you want to get your message come across and you want to protest, you can do it regardless of the message or the age, because here we were all underage. And after high school, I moved to Paris to do graphic design and animation studies, but I mostly did illustration. And it was years that I feel I had a lot of freedom in my work. I explored a lot of different techniques, and I did a lot of manual work. And 5 years ago, I moved to the Netherlands for an internship in a company called In 60 Seconds. It's an animation. They're doing explainer and infographics. And last year I worked for Amnesty International. I worked for almost 4 years in that company after the internship. And then I worked for Amnesty International last year in the social media department. And now I'm a freelancer. So yeah, Free and Monumental, like Lodovico said, we started to talk about the possibility of giving a talk here in December. So it was quite a long time ago. I really liked the theme of January that was Free, and Monumental that is the one of February. So I'm actually really happy to have a crossover between these two. So I will explain a little bit how the meaning that I give to these two words. So one, monumental, I see it as, if we think of something monumental, we think of something huge. And I like to associate this to the monumental impact of events in history. So, for example, the one that we're living right now, and what can we learn from these events, and how can I keep these lessons alive in my work. And Free, like I explained with my a little bit the family history and my own history, I feel it's really personal and close to me, and all these little experiences, at the end, they led me to become a freelancer 2 months ago. So I'm quite of a newbie. Yeah, I became a freelancer also to explore, dig a little bit deeper into the relation with design and activism, and how these two can be combined with each other. If you notice, I remember when I started studying graphic design, I noticed that design is really everywhere. We're constantly bombed by design. And at some point I thought, why not using all this space and all this people's attention to talk about things that are really important for me? And this could be social issues like climate change, but also human rights. And now I would like to do a little experiment with you all. I would like to know what is the first thing that pops in your mind when you're thinking of human rights. So I will give you 3 options, and then by raise of hands you can let me know which option is more suitable for you. So when you hear human rights, are you thinking of option 1? Something negative, so the violation of human rights and human rights not being respected? Or option 2, the benefits of human rights and how they're beneficial for us? Or option 3, you don't know what I'm talking about and what even are human rights? So please, by raise of hands, let me know if you're thinking of the first option, so something human rights being violated. Okay, and the second one, so the benefits of human rights in our lives. All right. And the third, you don't know what are human rights and you need... Oh, wow. Well, thank you for your honesty. Well, there were a lot of hands raised on the positive side, which I'm quite happy to see. And then I think you will recognize what I'm about to say. But first, let's just have a little bit of a history background on human rights. So they were created in 1948 after Second World War as the consequences of this war. So when the political leaders, they created the United Nations, they decided to also have a declaration, universal declaration of human rights for each and every individual in order to prevent the atrocity of the war to happen again. So these are a few basic human rights. In total, there are 30, but maybe these ones are the ones that we know the most. So the right to life, privacy, asylum, education, freedom, and actually marry, I think love is a more suitable one, but it's intended in marry that you can marry whoever you want. But it's true that when we read these rights, one of the first things that can pop in our mind is that they're not often respected. And this is partly due also to the communication that there is around human rights. So these are a few sentences that I found from NGOs, from campaigns or on social media these days about for an Instagram post. So the sentences are not wrong. They're not saying untruthful things, but they can be very heavy and they can make us feel guilty, and it's a bit of a desperate action to guilt people into act. And although they are coming from a really good place, from people that they're doing everything to make you act and take a change and support them, it's true that I feel that the communication is not always on point, because if we want to feel empathy or to have more empathy in the world, we should also reach out to a hope and trigger people with hope, and not just by triggering fear, outrage, disgust. So to me, it makes sense that if you want to see a hopeful change, then you need to also communicate in a hopeful way. So when I started my first activist project, I was already a bit wondering if the communication around activism was, which one was the most suitable for my work. And what I like in this project is that you can feel that there's still a bit of a mix of the two. I did a series of animation with some colleagues from in 60 Seconds, where I used to work, about meat consumption and plastic use. And we wanted to reach out to people with humor, but somehow I was still thinking that if I want to push people to act, I will have to shock them. So I like that in this project there's a little bit of both, and it's an evolution of how I work. So I will show you now the animation. All right. What I really like about this project is also what we created around it. Aside the actual work on it, because it was quite fun to do, but also when we released this animation, we encouraged our colleagues to have a vegan week, and we had a vegan week at the office since we were having lunch all together. It was the first step to implement a vegan diet, just for a week to see. Just to give people a taste of what it could be. And to be honest, it was quite fun. We tried a lot of vegan substitutes, and some were really good, some not so much, but it was good to just give it a try. And everybody did it with a very open mind and good spirit. And I was really happy to see that some of these changes, they stayed in the habits of the office and in some of my colleagues. Another project that I really liked was one that I did with Amnesty International. It was one of my very first projects, and it was for a campaign where we were asking the government to think on a better law against rape. So this literally translated means I say yes for a better law against rape. And this illustration were available on Amnesty's website after signing the petition to request for this better law. Then you have the choice between 4 or 5 illustrations, or to upload a selfie and with a frame around your selfie and share it on social media. So this had it was a really success, and a lot of people shared it on social media. And well, when you share a selfie, usually you're smiling, so it's also created a lot of good energy around it, and we reached a lot of people that signed the petition and started to make a change. The frames were also printed for a protest where some of the politicians also decided to take part of the protest. And we also made a video for social media with us colleagues from Amnesty, but also a few Dutch celebrities.
Ik zeg ja. 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 Ik zeg ja. Voor een betere wet tegen verkrachting. Jij toch ook?
And what I like about this is, the participation was big and hopeful, and this really gave me a great energy from both of these two projects. What I liked the most was actually people getting involved and acting and putting their face out there. And so at some point I thought, okay, how can I keep this? How can I keep this good energy and people coming together, even if the message behind is very serious and very urgent? How can I keep this great vibe and combine it with art and combine with activism? And it's when I thought about giving activist stamp workshops. But first, I will explain what is a stamp. So this is a stamp. You can create a stamp from rubber. It's exactly the same material of your eraser, but they have special carving blocks made of rubber that you can draw your design, carve it out with some special tools, and then ink your stamp. So everything that you ink is going to be printed. Everything that you're taking out is not going to be inked. And then you can print it on whatever surface you prefer. And I always like to do that. I told you that I was working a lot manually when I was a student, and with a friend of mine from Paris, we created a zine, which is an independent magazine, amateur publication, where we created the cover ourselves with the technique of linoleum, so they were big stamp. And inside, we were publishing and promoting young student illustrators. And what I like about the zine is that it has this very rebel side from... it made me immediately think of the zine, of the punk zines from the UK of the 70s. So with all this background, the fact that I love manual work, I love making stamps, and there's this rebel side to it, I thought that a stamp workshop would be the perfect activity to do. Oh. So the first workshop was created with Ladies Wine and Design and Illustration Ladies. They're both organizing events for female illustrators in Amsterdam. And we created a feminist stamp together while drinking wine. So we created a stamp with, of course, like a feminist connotation, and then these stamps were printed on adhesive paper in order to make stickers. And then after making all these stickers, we went around the city, putting it around the city. So it was really fun to do. To be honest, it was one of the best workshop I gave, because I asked the girls to focus on the positive side of being a feminist. Think of sisterhood, being strong together, celebrate the female body, whatever you feel inspired when you think of feminism. And then the act of putting the stickers around the city was this little rebel thing to do, a bit like you don't want to get caught, that made it really extra fun. So what I'm trying to say, I guess, with this presentation is to not forget to also talk about what you are for. I do understand that these two, what you are against and what you are for, they are entangled together, and we also need to show the reality and the facts of what's happening in the world. But I really believe that if we want to change towards a more hopeful future, we also need to show the kind of world that we would like to live in, and give solutions to what we think are our problems. And if I could put words into these feelings, it's also because I followed a webinar by Thomas Coombs. He's the founder of Hopebased Communications, and they're giving workshop for activists to help them to switch the narrative into a more hopeful one. So if you're into it, I really recommend to check their website. You will recognize a lot of the things that I said today. And they also partnered with Fine Act. So if you're a designer and you want to feel inspired, you can check Fine Act. They're also reimagining human rights with a more hopeful point of view. You can also send your work if you'd like. It's there for NGOs to use it to help them have a more hopeful communication, of course, with all the due credits and your permission. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening.